move forward collectively. And that's why these guys are great to work with. They're chasing greatness. But now, after a performance like that, no, we don't take less money, we take more money. So the other guys have got to, they'll get paid, but they have to show some ambition. It's just money, 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 money. What about trying to be number one in the division? Guys like Brian Norman, these guys, with all due respect to Brian Norman, he just boxed for about $150,000 on an undercard of Michaela Meyer against Sandy Ryan at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas.
So that's a significant piece of information right there, because I get where Brian Norman and his team, comes from. They're going to be fighting, at that point in time, he was a world champion. It would be a unification fight for the IBF. This was before Boots Ennis this weekend beat up Amanta Stanionis, 6-round corner stoppage, before he won the ring and WBA title this weekend. And before this, there was negotiations for Boots Ennis to fight Virgil Ortiz, but that would have been at 154. There was talks of him fighting Brian Norman. And Brian Norman, according to Eddie Hearn, made just $150,000 in his last fight. And if he were to fight Boots Ennis then and fight Boots Ennis again, he'll be making now he would be making at least 10 times more than what he made when he fought on the undercard of Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan 2 just a couple of weeks ago. Brian Norman, no disrespect to him as a fighter, I get what his team is trying to do. They're trying to get as much money as possible. Makes sense, but he hasn't really done anything of note. And we're going to look at all these guys' resumes at 147 pounds, by the way, because the division is starting to stack up. But by the way, I'm TstreeT Controversy with Fight View 360. I apologize for not doing my post-fight video this weekend. That's going to be this was my last Saturday night off for a long time going forward. So I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to watch the fight, and just chill. But, however, I just have to say that it's still, don't get me wrong, impressive win by Boots, but it's still an uphill battle to get the big fights to make him, the star that they want him to be. Now, there's been a lot of circulation of rumors that he may be leaving Matchroom to just be a Saudi Turkey al-Sheikh fighter, but we don't know any of that. But as it stands, it looks like they want to have him back this summer in July in Philadelphia against Brian Norman Jr. in a unification of 3 of the 4 belts. Boots has the IBF, the WBA that he just beat up Stanionis for, the Ring Magazine, which was put on the line for this unification. Brian Norman has the WBO. And Mario Barrios, who was going to talk about it a little bit later, he's trying to fight Manny Pacquiao, according to Eddie Hearn, which makes no sense. But hey, whatever, big money, Manny Pacquiao, okay. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We got a lot to talk about.
If we go back to the Wells Fargo now to unify again, he will fill the whole place, 18, 19,000, unquestionably. So there's money in the pot, but you've got to show ambition as well.
Eddie, so given what you just said and the experience of setting up this fight here, who is going to be the tougher fight to make out of Mario Barrios and Brian Norman Jr. in your opinion?
Listen, I heard that Barrios is talking about fighting Manny Pacquiao. I mean, what's all that about? Right? Brian Norman, for me, I spoke to Bob Arum during the week. He made it clear to me they want to try and make that fight. There's probably close to 10 times the biggest payday of Brian Norman's career to fight Boots Ennis. If you don't want to get in the ring, you might as well retire from the sport, because what's it all about? That kind of payday to fight the very best in the sport and prove yourself as a pound-for-pound great. So stop with Twitter, stop with Instagram, grow a set of balls and come and be in one of the biggest fights in the sport. Wells Fargo, back end of the summer or September or wherever it's going to be when he's ready. Let's make it happen.
So they were talking about Atlanta as a potential.
Fuck it, what? Why? He's just boxed on an undercard in front of about 1,200 people. This guy, you heard what he said, 15,000, 12,000, 9,000 tonight, whatever it was. Come on. No, and that's what I said to those guys last time. Oh, we're not going to Philadelphia. Where do you think the money comes from? So let's just, this is not about being disrespectful. But Brian Norman's a great fighter, but don't we want to make great fights for the sport? And like this guy's, he ain't losing at 47. He ain't losing at 54. He ain't losing at 60. Watch what he does over the next few years. He's going through all the divisions.
So let's talk about the resume and the division. Boots Ennis is now 34-0 with 30 KOs, a much needed KO, by the way, of a very well respected amount of Stanionis. I expected for Stanionis to do better than he did, but Boots Ennis neutralized that shit. And he said many times, especially after his last fight where he didn't look too good against Karen Chuk, that's what I call him, in Philadelphia. I was at that fight, by the way. I was at his last 2 fights in Philly, by the way. He didn't look good. And I remember in the Wells Fargo Center, it was a lot of fans was like, man, Boots, man, he fucking up out there, man. He looked like shit. It was quiet in there at the end of that bell. Nonetheless, he got the win, but people were like questioning, like, is he really going to be that next guy? Me, to be very honest, he's building up a nice, solid resume, but he still needs that big win to get him over the hump. Okay, yes, Brian Norman, that's going to be, unification is going to be like, all right, he's going out there collecting the belts. Yes, he was an email champion with the IBF. You can't blame him for that. Actually, Errol Spence should have. It was crazy how they did Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence was off on layoffs for God knows how many reasons involving things outside of the ring, car accidents, drunk driving and all that stuff. They never ordered him to fight Boots, but then as soon as Terrence Crawford beats the shit out of Errol Spence, they order him to fight Boots. So he says, all right, he vacates. Boots gets it via email. Now, the Terrence Crawford Boots in his talk, I just, I get where Terrence Crawford's coming from. Terrence Crawford was kind of in that same place before where, the big names wasn't really giving him a shot. I kind of get it. But if he's going on the fight for a 154-pound title in a new division, which he went on to do, he actually got 2 belts, the WB and the WBO interim. And then now he's going to fight Canelo. It's like, all right, but the Boots in this fight is not dead. It can still possibly happen because Terrence Crawford's not talking about retiring yet. But we'll see how he does against that in that Canelo fight to see if he, if he really going to stick around. But anyway, back to Boots. The 147-pound division is starting to get heavy again. I'm going to explain to you in a minute. Now, first, Stanionis, Karen Chuk, David Evernessian, Roman Vila, Karen Chuk again, Castillo Clayton, Tomas Delorme, Sergey Limpinets. So let's go ahead, hardcore boxing fans, let's go ahead and rank the wins of Boots Ennis and how, like give a gauge on how he can do against these other fighters that I'm about to mention. So I'm going to go ahead and say that his best win to me is Amanda Stanionis. Full-fledged 147-pounder despite the layoffs. Stanionis, I would pick Stanionis to beat Karen Chuk, Evernessian, Vila, Clayton, Delorme, Sergey Limpinets, Chris Van Herden. I would pick him to beat all of these guys. Number 2 would be, here's the thing. I'm going to go with number 2. I never really considered Sergey Limpinets a real 147-pound fighter. He just was up there masquerading around, and then definitely not Tomas Delorme. Castillo Clayton, solid. What has he done since then? What has Vila done since then? Oh, he's been pretty much inactive. Mr. Clayton. And let's see. Vila, well, he hasn't, he's lost again. All right. So these wins, there's a lot of question marks around him. Now, I'm not disrespecting Boots. We're just talking boxing. Hardcore boxing. He needs that big, and I don't know. We don't know enough about Brian Norman Jr. We don't know enough. Yes, he got a nice knockout, but against who? On an undercard of a women's card? No disrespect to the women. Big shout out to Sandy Ryan and Michaela Mayer, 2 of my favorite women boxers or female boxers. But when you look at the division right now here's the thing. These are only the names that you see on BoxRec. But when you look at the division, BoxRec rankings are shit anyway. But when you look at Mario Barrios, the WBC champion, 29-2-1 with 18 KOs. He struggled with Abel Ramos. A lot of people thought he should have lost that fight, to be honest. He's fighting Fabian Madonna. I never viewed Yordenis Ugas that highly. Giovanni Santiago, a lot of people thought he had beat Adrian Broner. He got beat up by Keith Thurman, and he was doing really well against Gervonta Tank Davis at 140 until Tank chased him down and knocked him out. So, it's who would you say is the weakest in the 47-pound division, the weakest champion? Is it Brian Norman or is it Mario Barrios? Who would you pick in that fight? So, when you talk about the guys that are now moving up to 147 pounds, that is a ray of light for Boots Ennis. You see stuff like this. Let me show you. You now have Ryan Garcia, who's going to be taking on Rolly Romero on May the 2nd. We're going to be covering that card, trying to get there. Ryan Garcia is now 147. He confirmed it. You got Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez also fighting at 147 pounds. Both confirmed they're going to be staying at 147 pounds. So after May the 2nd, the division is going to open up. Also, Teofimo Lopez is on his way to 147 pounds if he beats Arnold Barboza. Arnold Barboza, I think he's going to really stay there, I guess. Gary Antoine Russell is on his way up eventually in the next year and a half or so. So what I'm saying is you have some potential big fights. Boots Ennis versus Devin Haney. Potential. Boots Ennis versus Ryan Garcia. Boots Ennis versus Teofimo Lopez. So now was his time to shine. And one thing I love about this is he's been active. He's been finally being really built up in his area. For example, let's see here. In 9 months, he's had 3 fights. Before that, he was on a year layoff. 9 months. And then it looks like they're going to bring him back for a 4th fight in a year or just a little over a year, whoever he fights this summer. You can't, I think that Matchroom has been doing right by him. And, he had that controversy that seemed to now have been swept under the rug where, he was in talk to fight Virgil Ortiz, so he needed something significant. But now he's got that Ring Magazine belt. So the question is, what is Brian Norman going to do? What is Brian Norman going to do to make sure that this fight happens? Is he going to price himself out? Because according to Boots in that same post-fight press conference, he was offered something like $2 million and he turned it down. Is that correct? Can somebody confirm that? Well, Boots said it. He said it. $2 million and he turned it down. In fact, let me see what Brian Norman, because let me see if he posted anything. By the way, please drop a like. Got a lot more videos coming for you. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, Errol Spencer's on his way back. Yeah, there is also some rumors of some sparring that went on. Well, it's not sparring. Boots Ennis acknowledged it, and Boozy, the trainer, father of Boots, that they sparred in the past in the gym, I guess Boots' gym, and Brian Norman Jr. got touched up. And see, I don't count sparring. You know why? Because you never know what's going to happen in sparring, because you never really know how the fighter was showing up, whether it was showing up to say, yeah, I'm taking it serious, I'm just coming to get a little light workout. You never know. It's so many different factors. But let's listen to this right here.
It was never competitive. It's not going to underestimate Brian Norman. Him and Brian Norman sparred multiple times. Multiple times. It was never competitive. It was never close. It was never any of that.
We're getting it from
when
someone
they brought up
that
the
was
whole box. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're getting it from
This is from the
someone
Sean
who was
Porter
there.
podcast.
Yes, I saw them spar. So even when they talked about the body shot thing, mind you, when the whole debacle of Brian Norman and his dad going on tour talking about, boots, I'm just sitting there being quiet watching until they start crossing lines. Then I'm like, all right, now, I was there. When he put Brian Norman down, if this was a fight, it would have took way more than 10 seconds for him to get up. When he put him down that body shot, it would have taken way more than 10 seconds for him to get up. But let's pretend that the body shot never happened. The spar was never close, and none of them. That fight, mark my words, does not go past 5, and I'm being generous.
Bet the house?
It's not going to underestimate Brian Norman.
I don't know. Let's see. Who is this? Aaron Peterson, who saw all the sparring sessions between Boots and Norman, says the fight's not going past 5. Anybody know who Aaron Peterson is? Let me do a little Google. I'm guessing he was a boxer. There it is right there. Let's see. That's not him. What's his name? That's not him? Is that him? Is that the same? Look, Aaron Peterson. Is that the same dude? He's from Philly. Do they got the wrong? Maybe it's the alopecia. Is that the same guy? Let me see here. Wait a minute. Is there another Aaron Peterson? Junkyard Dog? I'm guessing it's the alopecia. Is that the same dude? Or is somebody messed up somewhere with the name? But anyway, moving on. Mario Barrios Manny Pacquiao is some bullshit. But I can't knock that he's trying to get that payday, but still. But as far as Brian Norman Jr. is concerned, let's be very honest. His options are not he's got Japanese guys pulling up on him. Jin Sasaki pulled up on him a couple of weeks ago after his fight. He wants to fight. But are people really calling for that? Yes, if he goes over to Japan, it's probably going to pull some numbers. But I don't think it's going to pull the same numbers as if he fights Boots Ennis. So, I mean, it depends. Japanese fighters come out. But in reality, don't nobody want to see that fight. And now the clock is on Brian Norman because his team, Top Rank, as you can say, Eddie Hearn said he talked to Bob Arum. They want to make the fight. So let's see if he tries to bullshit around with this or not. You know, he's in the deep end now. How old is Brian Norman Jr., by the way? What is he? In fact, let me pull his resume up here. What is he? 24. 27-0 with 21. Oh, yeah. You in the deep end now, bub. You in the deep end now. And look, ain't nothing on that resume to threaten Boots with. But sparring is different than boxing. And for him to say that he wants to fight down in Atlanta, you know, what strings can he pull? He don't bring in no money. Nobody knows who he is. His last fight was on the undercard. No disrespect to the females, of a female boxing event in a small arena. And Boots got 3 of the belts. This is most significant, the Ring Magazine. He's the lineal champion. He is the man of the division. Mario Barrios is going to have to figure out what he's going to do. Now, here's the thing. If Manny Pacquiao fuck around at 4, hold on.
Disrespectful, but Brian Norman's a great fighter. But don't we want to make great fights for the sport?
What is that?
You know, and like this.
Manny Pacquiao's going to have, if he fucks around and comes back at 45 years old and beats Mario Barrios, then that's really going to throw a monkey wrench into things because people are going to be looking at Boots like, man. You know, but let's not even go down that route. We're just going to wait and see if that happens. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm TstreeT Controversy with Fight View 360.